taught you, Imzadis, that you should subscribe to the Salon on all of our platforms, from YouTube to Twitter to Bluesky, or any of your favorite podcast platforms? Did you know that you could support us on Patreon, free or for $2 or $5 for special content? Did you know that we've launched a store where you can purchase merch and support the podcast? That's right, everyone, and welcome to the Salon. Let's get started. To kick things off, I got to beam up my crew from our Farpoint station. Let's start with my co-host, Trevor. How are you?
Fortunately, I was able to, well, this is probably going to trigger an alert already. I was able to swallow before spitting Aperol Spritz all over my screen from your little telepathic message for all of us. Thank you for that.
You're welcome, and thank you for this.
Problematic gay alert.
Let's bring in Will. Will, how are you?
I'm good. I don't want to encourage you, but that was really funny.
That
was good.
I will accept the compliment and not let it.
I don't want you to get too full of yourself here.
Let it go to the head.
No.
Speaking of going to the head, here's Ken. How are you? I love that we went through the whole rigmarole of your microphone prior to the show, and it did nothing. We cannot hear you. And it's the best you've ever been on the Salon. Let's take it to Benji while Ken figures that out. How are you, Benji?
Good. My microphone works.
It does indeed. Speaking of working it, let's go to Matt. How are you?
Honestly, I hope that went as a readout to all stations and all sensor deflectors relays.
It wasn't a readout. It was a printout. I expect everybody to print paper.
Printouts, yes.
Yes.
On every station.
Man, I could only think of a mean segue, and I'm not going to do that to my queen. Joanne, how are you?
Hello. All hail the queen.
Absolutely. And our other queen, Krista, how are you?
I had vodka.
Ken, can we hear you now? Let's try it.
Nope, still not.
No, we can't. But you keep trying while I play Salon Squares here.
Yeah,
let's we'll put all these on either side of our center homosexual here. Yeah, that's right, y'all. It's pilot season. Last week we talked about the two that kicked it off, and this week we're talking about another doozy, Encounter at Farpoint, and Ken's gone. We hope for a speedy return. Q, bring him back. How dare you? We will hope for the best, but we will continue forward, and while we hope Ken will return soon with sound, we will make this encounter at Farpoint full of great joy and gratitude. But before we talk about this episode, as you all know, we simply must set an intention.
Indeed, we must. So I thought it would be fun in honor of this fantastic episode. So, and fuck anybody who says it wasn't. I thought it'd be fun if we went around the room and fixed it. So what is one thing you would love to change about this episode? It could have a ripple effect throughout the entire series, or perhaps it's just something about this episode that you thought could have been a little bit better that maybe won't have that ripple effect. As always, I will start us off by saying that I loved Saucer Separation. 11-year-old Trev lost his frickin' mind when I realized the ship could separate and might do it, every couple of weeks. Of course, it didn't happen that way, but it could have. And I think it would have been more interesting if just like the top half of the saucer came off so that the ship didn't look quite as decapitated when the star drive was flying around with that tiny little thing in front. It just didn't look imposing. It didn't look dangerous or scary. It didn't look like a battle drive. It looked like a ship got broken in half. Wouldn't have gone there, Benji. But maybe I needed it to be a little bit more intact. Insert joke here.
Problematic gay alert.
I like my ships with all their parts. Let's go around the room. I would love to hear each of your tiny or perhaps very large fixes. So Matt, I'm scared to start with you, but we're going to.
You know, mine is actually only a very small fix, because I think, like, if you're gonna joke about it, yeah, the episode is of its time. It was a new Star Trek. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what to do with budgeting or audio, when most of it just sounds like they're in, the echo chamber of the sound stage they were on. But all that aside, I will say, I wish that they hadn't gone so militaristic with it. Like Riker yelling at, like, kind of being stern with Geordi. Is this an official, like, report? Like, we didn't, like, obviously we know that ended quickly and went, like, but it would have been nice if they had just laid the tone right from the beginning for TNG, that it wasn't like the militaristic style of, TOS. So I think that's a very small, but it also felt like throughout the whole thing, like Picard was even more, militaristic with Riker, and like, oh, if he thinks that he's already thinking this, and he's like, Mike, like, it just all felt very, especially once we know where they get to, it felt unnecessary. Yeah, I think that would be the only thing I would change.
Including the 2 references to Deanna's rank. I mean, I wouldn't have been too upset if they left it in, but referring to her, and also a remnant of the fact that her original character description was that of a lieutenant, but then she was a lieutenant commander. Right, Picard refers to her as commander, but then Riker calls her lieutenant later on.
Yeah.
So, Ken, we'll come back to you in just a few. Benji, what is your tiny little change, or perhaps significant change, that you would make to this episode?
Okay, so I don't know if you nerds are familiar with the Nibbler's Shadow discourse, which is that in the first episode of Futurama, it was aired with like Nibbler's Shadow in the background when Fry gets frozen. Much later in Futurama, there's an episode where he actually does go back and like interferes with the series of events. So if I had like Q powers, I would insert something into Encounter at Farpoint from All Good Things. I just don't know what that thing would be because I didn't watch the episode, which I would. If anybody in the chat has any thoughts about what you could grab from All Good Things to put into Encounter at Farpoint, I'm very interested.
Maybe the scene where they're in the shuttle bay and Picard takes command. Ooh. And they don't go to red alert and freak out.
Yeah, that's
or the reception in 10 Forward. I know 10 Forward hadn't been built yet, but that would have been cool.
Also cool.
Joanne, I love.
So, I don't know. Honestly, I didn't like how he met Crusher, and I was like, "Do you know her, or do you not?" And did you know she was there, or did you not? Like, they took on a lot of people at Farpoint, but they only mentioned like Riker. So I was totally confused. Like, do you know who's on your ship, man? But I guess that's it. And Troy's terrible accent.
Did you read your emails? Did you read your email before
right?
You
do you
took
watch the you watch the show, Taylor? So yeah, that and Troy's terrible accent, I would change.
And yet, Joanne, that's a really good point, because there's also that point where he goes, "Oh, you requested this assignment? You didn't know she requested it?
Right.
You just did you just go through and just like friend request accept everyone that
He
wanted
was
to be
like
on your
select
ship?"
all, approve. And it was like, "Oh, wait, bitch, it's you. Hey, like, no. Hey, you. It's just Oh, and you got a baby. Oh, hey. I mean, it was just that whole scene needed to change, right? Yeah.
I'm stuck on select all approve. Oh shit. Also counts as a bev alert. I'm counting it. Will, my dear.
I changed a lot, to be honest. I think my biggest complaint is like the pacing of it, and like how there's scenes that feel like they're out of order. Like that scene, like they're clearly something is happening, and they're like, oh, we're going to the transporter room, there's an away team getting ready, I'm gonna go talk. Picard's like, I'm gonna go talk to Beverly about something that happened a long ass time ago. And it's like, what? Like it's very apparent that they wrote a pilot that was the Farpoint station bit, and then Gene Roddenberry came in and slapped on the Q shit to kind of like bookend the episode. It's very apparent because like they very clearly completely forget about Q, and they don't talk about what's happened. Like, is this a test? There's no connective tissue between the two kind of major A and B plots of this, and no one ever questions, oh, is this base and this shit, is this part of the test? Like, no one comments on the fact that they're being tested. They're like, he says, oh, we're just gonna carry on as if nothing's happened. It's like, no, a being of like immense intelligence beyond like your comprehension has just tested all of humanity, and you're gonna act like nothing's happened. It's like, come on, like that's a little dumb. And also like just character development's really weird. Like they just don't, people come in and out, and it's just very strange. Like, and also like the room tone, like people are clearly talking into like an empty space, and no one thought to put up like sound dampening stuff. Like if someone's at like Connor Ops and the camera's like behind, yeah. If they're like near the captain's chair, the camera, they're clearly like echoing like this. It's like, girl, what happened? Like, it's so weird. Like the room tone is so bad. Like, yeah, it's just wonky from start to finish. It just needs like one more like smooth over, I think is what I would do writing wise.
It is funny to see.
In front of the camera.
Oh my god, bitch, that's so funny to me. That's so funny to me. And the point where like where Data and whoever was sitting at the other station get up to leave, and then two people just come out of a closet and sit. It's like, where did they come from? No one said, hey, we need people at the station. Two people come out of a closet that disappears the next episode, mind you. That door disappears, and then they just come out and they sit down, and it's like, what the fuck is that?
Also,
so weird.
They also could have shot the bridge differently so that Troy like doesn't have to keep her knees together the entire time she's sitting in
locked
chair next to
because Marina Sirtis ain't wearing no panties. Yeah. She's sitting there, nothing, it's locked up.
Anxiety. Do you remember this?
She forgot her panties. She can't remember nothing. Forgot them panties. Yeah.
You know she fucked Riker in the bathroom. That's why he always looks for it when he gets on the bridge.
That's why he's always out of breath.
That's not something. I don't know what it is, but that wasn't something.
I don't know. Click something. Click the damn button.
That's fair.
Off the rails. And I love it.
That, by the way, is what they should have done in Encounter 4, but that'll be my change. To blow
Ken, we can't hear you.
Yes, you can. So I have to say to everybody here, fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Now the reason that I fell for that is because
hang on. We were gonna come to you, but now
I'm gonna keep talking until you have to mute me. Yeah,
we were gonna come to you after Krista.
Nope,
now you're interrupting.
Nope, gonna keep talking.
Interrupting the women. Wow.
The women.
Let him go. Let him go.
He's not used to a woman being on the panel.
Oh. Ken,
He's
what
not used to a woman
what is
being
your
on
intention setter? Go ahead.
No, Krista. Go.
You petty bitch. You petty fucking bitch.
That's
Just
one
say
petty
it.
bitch alert.
You know what? It's an old high school saying, but it takes one to know one, Krista. There you go.
Did he have wine tonight? Did somebody give Ken wine? Because it's happening.
I know
Wow.
you are, but what am I?
It's
You really had to
happening.
blow the dust off that insult, didn't you, Ken? Damn.
Yeah, I did have to blow. I had to blow a lot for that insult. Oh my goodness. Anyway,
Sure
so
you
go
did.
ahead.
Problematic gay alert.
Do you remember?
Krista, dear, what is your
All right, here's mine. decided that I wouldn't change anything about this glorious fuck up of an episode. I would add 2 characters, and they're not Star Trek characters. They're actually Ensign Magenta and Ensign Riffraff from Rocky Horror Picture Show. And when the space jellies join together, everybody joins together, and then they do the fucking time warp. And that's what I would add to this episode.
Again,
It's just a jump to the left. It's
Right.
a great reference, Krista. I love all of these. I think if I were to change something about this episode, just something, not many things. We said this last week about the other pilots, but it is especially true in this one. Gene Roddenberry, God love him. Thank you for the franchise. Not great at world building, like not great at thinking things ahead, like printouts and circuits, and like they did not put a lot of thought early on in like, okay, what does this ship look like when you take it apart? What do we call people in this rank? What, like, shit of that nature? Like, what's the policy and procedure? Do we operate like a submarine? Do we, or is it different? Like he has that capability. It just didn't come through in this pilot. So, whoops. But yeah, that is what I would do. Is I would have done a world building pass. I would have been like, hey, you're talking about circuits. That's today technology. Do you want to update that to some future sounding whatever? Oh boy. All right. The intentions are set, and now it is time to not interrupt me because we are moving on to the next segment of our show. And we are talking about. Wait, did you want to go now again? You said it.
Oh, yeah.
No, we didn't.
All right, never mind then. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that my mic was working, or that that you guys were able to hear me. That's okay.
In the last 3 minutes with all of that riffraff, we heard it.
Oh, all right, good.
What is the thing you would change, Ken? You said it before.
So
I thought I heard it, but apparently I didn't. So
I
please
wouldn't
share.
pull up the shit, but I have problems. The writing. So Will is right about the writing. It sucks. And then also their shields are up, and they beam people up while their shields are up. They gotta stop doing that shit. Yes, they did. Yep.
And now the intentions are set. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you to the panel. And let's get into what we haven't been talking about yet at all. Our top thoughts on this episode. I'll kick things off. It was a mess, but I love it. I love all of Star Trek, but like it almost feels like campy bad. It's that bad. Like we're gonna throw in an even more Southern, even more problematic Dr. McCoy. We have the most random hodgepodge of characters that we are just not going to fully flush out. I hate Q. If I may be bold and brave, I want to admit I have always hated this character, as fun as he can be. The introduction, especially him being like, you can go no further, completely forgetting the entire other ship that is already further than the Enterprise that he just stopped. But I do love a good diva behavior costume change. The captain, mess. I love this moment because he literally like his captain's log is playing while they like no time has passed. When did this happen? It makes no fucking sense. All of the dickishness from the commander, the captain, this cheerleader Troy, I wish we got more of. Loved her. No notes. The way they introduced the doctor really pissed me off. She's like, I was just going to go do some shopping. And her bratty ass son saying, oh, don't worry about my mom, Commander. She's just that way around strange men. Why would you write that line and think it's cool, even in 1987? Nothing for Geordi. Like he's just there to be somebody looking futuristic. Data, really interesting. Like probably had the most interesting introduction of all of the crew. Worf, everything we will ever get from Worf, we got in this first episode. So the energy was matched. And my girl Tasha, what could have been for this badass character. Those are my top thoughts. We'll go back in reverse order. Top thoughts on the episode, Krista.
I have not watched this episode in so long, and after watching it, after all the new Trek, I there is not a single part that I just did not laugh through. It's just so perfectly bad that it's enjoyable. The entire thing is just littered with Chekhov's guns. Absolutely, it's a minefield of Chekhov's guns. It's Q thinks Riker would be amusing. Later, he makes him a god. The whole Picard Crusher mishmash, the precocious and annoying Wesley, the whole thing was, to me, in the middle of watching, like, I thought the second one was actually better than the first one. And my first thought when Picard gets onto the bridge for the first time and says something in halting British, Starfleet is difficult. And I was like, are you waiting for Ian McKellen to jump out of one of these closets so you guys can riff a whole old Vic Shakespearean thing? To me, what struck me is how uncomfortable they were. And like the visuals were great compared to the original series. The space jellies were great. All the spaceship was great. Everything, the splitting of the who's it drives, all of that stuff was really great. So the technological stuff was on point. It was the writing that sort of struck me as a room full of people that were like sort of apologizing for ever engaging in contemplating continuing the series with an entirely new set of cast members. Like, it seemed obvious to me that the writing was so unsure, and like the one standout moment for me was Tasha Yar's impassioned defense of humanity. And at the end, I was like, say it, because you know she wanted to scream, right planet. That's it. That's all. That's all I've got. It was so ridiculous. I don't understand. Here's my thing. When old Bones is walking down and he's going, old man Southern racist talk. Yeah, well, if you treat her like a lady, she'll always bring you home. And I was like, Dina, why are you not asking what happens if you treat her like a hoe? Like, what is the opposite of treating her like a lady? Seems to me a reasonable question from a person who doesn't understand human communication. They fucking dropped the ball there for me. What happens if you treat her like a hoe? Full release. That's what happens.
What if you fuck the starship in the ass without asking?
This is what I'm saying. Do we get full release? Is it a happy ending? Do I have to escort her home, or can I just pay her and let her go?
Plasma leakage.
Speaking of manual dockings, Will, what were your top thoughts on this episode?
Oh my God. Well, Chris is talking about a different type of saucer separation. This episode is so weird. It's campy without being entertaining. It's a blockbuster but completely boring. It's a 2-hour snooze. It's just so stupid. It's like it's a very bless Gene Roddenberry. It's a very clear point that he should stop writing episodes because he wrote an episode from the 60s for a show in the 80s. And that's indicative of every episode in the first season just broadly. They were written 20 years too late. And this episode is so strange because it does, in one hand, it does the thing it needs to do by introducing these characters, but it introduces them so poorly and so wrong that it might as well not exist. Like it's like, okay, we get Q, but it's not Q's best showing. We get Picard, but he comes off like the captain of the Love Boat. Like it's so weird. It's like the world building of this is crazy because he's like, I don't do well with children, but I'm on a starship, and it's like, why are there people? Why is there families and children on this? Why is he the captain of the Love Boat? Like it makes sense. He's like, I'm going to be the captain of the new flagship. There are families aboard it. Like not only are you having to think about all of these people in your charge as like a military officer, but now you have their families and just random people who live on your ship. It's like, why is he the captain of a Carnival cruise ship? It's so weird. I want like a water slide on the back of it. Like it was strange because they made him sound like he was the captain of the Love Boat. I was like, what is happening? Like they're going to dock at Fantasy Island, which was basically Farpoint Station. It was so weird. Like viewing it from like how we get New Trek, where it's like that pilot episode really has a lot of work to do. This is like, I'm surprised we got 7 seasons of this show. If this show premiered now, we would get 2 seasons and it would get kicked over to Netflix. Like, it's bad. Like, it was so bad. And then you can see how uncomfortable everyone is. The sets look unfinished. My top thoughts are, wow. Watching it now with a more critical lens, because as a kid, I was like, this is weird. But now I'm like, I need to see that. That's what I would add to this episode. It's just, it's weird that they wrote basically an episode of The Love Boat and then said, but it's Star Trek. It's so weird. Anyway, I know I pissed off Trev. He looks angry.
No, you haven't pissed me off at all. No.
It's just weird because it felt like an episode of The Love Boat. I was like, what is this?
That's just my resting hostile face. It happens all the time.
She works in HR, people. She's trained to have that phase.
Can I just say that if it actually was the Love Boat, though, and one of the things that really irrationally made my brain explode was when Picard commands them to go to a dead stop instead of the more correct full stop. I'm like, what the fuck, man? It's nautical. It's nautical.
Yeah.
Fucking, you're no Captain Steubing, bitch.
Anyway. There it is. That's the image that conjures in my mind. It's just so weird. It's like, why? Anyway, those are my. I don't need to rant anymore. I think Joanne, darling, your top thoughts.
So I have very fond memories of this episode because it was my first year in college when it aired, and we had this. Our dorm we had 2 sort of lounges. One was really nice and one was not as nice. And so everybody kind of congregated in the nice lounge to watch TV. But there were 4 of us who kind of found their way to the other side and were like, hey, do you mind if we watch? And we all kind of said at the same time, Star Trek. And so we laughed and we all kind of sat there and watched it. And we kind of gathered there every week to watch it. And I made 4 of my lifelong friends there. So I always have just a really great association with this episode because I met people that I truly love. One of which who went on he died a couple of years ago, but he went on he wrote his dissertation kind of around Star Trek and aliens. There's a whole chapter about the Klingons as others, and African American stand-ins, and was working on a full-blown kind of book about it when he died. So I'm sad that that will never get published unless someone else writes it. But and I remember being on Zoom, kind of watching. I mean, it carried through all. We all kind of got on Zoom and watched the debut of Discovery together, because at the time Lori was the only one who had a CBS All Access login. But anyway, so it's just I have fond memories of it. Even though it is crazy and weird, but it introduced me to um, just a group of people in a world and a universe and a fandom that I love, right? So suck on that, bitches. Yeah.
Well. Trying to see the good in it. I think like for me, like in terms of like negative stuff, I think like the roughest thing is just the Roddenberry-esque dialogue is so awkward and weird, and it will take us 2 years to leap over that and get people talking normal. It was kind of boring. There was a lot of like a lot of real estate development talk, like about like how they're like building the base and how the base is constructed and how is it built like that and crawling around underneath it. But through all of that, like right off the top when we meet Q, and he takes them to Earth's like 21st century fascist phase, that definitely hit. Star Trek always reflects us, no matter how far we think we've come. The other thing that hit was they did like set up, or through Q sets up the series to explore like questions of ethics and altruism, that follows, what is hopefully our trajectory towards the Star Trek utopia. That stuff spoke to me like very directly at a young age. It changed my worldview. It influenced my path in life. And it's all right there from episode 1. So it was really nice to see that it was like infused into that first episode, and that they set that up and they carry it through the entire series, and then they put a really nice cap on it in All Good Things. So I thought that was the best of it. But yeah, it's a convoluted hack job, but it got it off the ground. So yay for that.
I think that, like, as you're saying that, it reminded me, or made me think, it felt like a pilot in the sense of like, so we have this idea and we're gonna try it. Whereas like now pilots are like, here's my package and here you go, and this is what I want you to do, and like, do you like it? Tell me if you like it. And instead of like, okay, so we got this guy and he's British and he's on a ship and there's other people and they're in space and there's this alien, and like it was like, it's so disconnected on so many levels. Like the characters are like, somehow they know each other but none of them really know each other, but somehow he worked with like the whole thing just seems so disorganized, but at the same time it has that level of camp that TNG should have and at its best does have. It's like this serious camp that I mean, Encounter at Farpoint definitely missed the mark on completely, but yeah, I'm glad that they eventually got there with it, because this was not it, because that was too much. It was rough to go back and rewatch that, knowing how much I love the series and show.
Well, so I also was in college, and I was obviously a huge The Original Series fan, or Star Trek fan, and I watched this thing. And I've said in this salon before that I just got really, really pissed off that anyone else could start with Space, the Final Frontier. That really got me right from the beginning. I was just like that, Trev. I was like stamping around the room. I was like, who the hell do these people think they are? And I said it just like that. Who the hell do these people think they are? And then I was watching the show and I was like, okay, so they've turned the Bridge of the Enterprise into a giant living room complete with carpet. And then Trelane pops in. I'm like, okay, there we go. Trelane pops in. What's up with that? And they say, you know, go back. And then I'm like, this is the same old story. And then they actually say it. This is the same old story that we've had many, many times of superhuman, super beings trying to tell us what to do. I'm like, oh, yeah, no shit. Then, you know, I'm watching these characters. And remember when we said last week how with Where No Man Has Gone Before, you know, William Shatner had Kirk down in that first scene, the first chess scene with Kirk and Spock. I mean, you had Kirk right there. None of these characters, not one of them, are right there in this pilot. They all are messed up some way. They all are just caricatures of themselves that they eventually somehow grow into or die, in Tasha's case. So it's just amazing how off this pilot is. The ship was beautiful. I thought, you know, the visual effects were great. You know, the saucer separation kind of cool. I, of course, loved the not Southern racist Dr. McCoy, might I add, just Dr. McCoy. And I thought that was a great scene. And yeah, so that's my top thoughts. And now, hopefully you all heard me. And now back to you, Trev.
It's a shame we didn't hear any of that. I've been posting all week about how I'm like waiting for everybody to rip this episode apart. I'm gonna defend it. I'm not gonna defend it, but I will defend the joy that it brought me when I was 11 years old. And I was 11 years old, so that should tell you the level of successful drama that was delivered to all of you. You know, it entertained an 11-year-old. But you know, I found you know, Star Trek when I was like 6 or 7 years old, the first time I saw a rerun, and of course it was the original series. And then I had the original series films, and I was completely obsessed with both. And when TNG came along, I was just ridiculously excited. It happened to come along at a time where we had just moved from the Northeast to the Southeast, and it was, I was changing schools, and I didn't know anyone, and I really didn't have a lot of friends. It took me, I mean, a whole like 6 months to make friends, but it was like lonely kid time, and suddenly there was this show that was entertaining and entertaining a kid. So regardless of the fact that I'm 48 years old now and probably would have higher standards if this show were to just be released, it reminds me of being 11 years old and excited to see it. So that's why I enjoy it. Not because it's good, but because it entertained me and made me happy when I was a little kid. So I will not be fighting any of you. All of your critiques and criticisms are completely accurate. There are some wonderful things about this episode in terms of what it sets up for next gen, but there are also some massive contradictions, things that just get dropped that I kind of wish didn't. Some things I wish got dropped that really needed to just get dropped, and things that I wish had never happened in the first place. But it is definitely, I think it does fit a unique category of being one of the clunkiest pilots probably in television history that led to such a successful television show. So I love it for that. I think that's a fun moniker, or not moniker, a fun award or distinction to have. And yeah, those are my top thoughts. I not relevant to this episode, that my saddest moments are always watching Tasha and wishing for what could have been had she stayed with the show. Her difficult line delivery notwithstanding, to Krista's earlier point. But yes, those are my top thoughts.
I must.
Captain, I must.
God, I love Tasha Yar. I have said it before. I want a blatant ripoff of Marvel's What If, a Star Trek What If, and episode 1 is What If Tasha Yar didn't die. More of her in the scant, maybe. Who's to say?
I have a whole plan for that. Who sits where? Who's wearing what uniform? I've got it. We'll fix it one day.
Yesterday's
Tall
edition?
Monster Maroons. Just kidding. I know you hate those. All right, well, so those are our top thoughts. Let's get into the episode a little bit more. I thought the way we could go about discussing it a little deeper is to maybe do what I personally think they may have considered doing in the first place, which is separating the two. Haha, saucer separation. The Q putting humanity on trial as a full episode versus Encounter at Farpoint being its own full episode. So let's first talk about Q putting humanity on trial and share any thoughts that we have there. I will say, while a little cheesy, I did like getting a bit, like, I'm going to contradict myself a little bit, because while we didn't get a lot of great world building for the world in the 24th century, we got some interesting tidbits about what our near future looks like. It's padded and it's poppered up. So get ready, everybody.
So am I. Honestly.
Yes.
That's how I live life. If that's not 2025, bitch, I don't know what is.
Padded and poppered up.
Problematic gay alert.
Who has thoughts about being put on trial? Krista, I love to see a hand. Go for it.
I don't really. It was an interesting thing to listen to the rebuttals to Q in our current lives. We're not savages. We don't do this anymore. That was interesting. But my main issue was when they went and they had the audience for the trial, and it was apparently supposed to be post-apocalyptic. I wondered why their skin looked so good. Like, why were there not pustules and like big goiters on the side of their necks? Like, they didn't look like it was post-apocalyptic at all. It was just this group of people that apparently survived a nuclear fallout with no physical adjustments at all. And I
It's like Mad Max on a budget.
Yeah, I was just like, this doesn't make any sense in science. And this show is supposed to be about, science and things like that. So that didn't make any sense to me. Although I won't get into what I basically thought was sort of offensive players in that. So I'll leave that there. Somebody else go.
Is anybody want to speak up for the defense? Will?
I think that the Q trial has the biggest payoff of the series because it pays off later, and like introducing Q is interesting. I just think that if that was the center of the episode, it'd be more interesting if maybe he made them stay in that time or did something that it was more focused on his interaction with them and like trying them maybe through humanity's history, like seeing how these new humans would react as they go through. But like as like a it's like iconic now because it pays off 7 years later, but like 7 seasons later. But it's I found like some of their arguments to be a little nonsensical, like what they were saying to each other, like they wouldn't have held up in a court. It was just like, that's not really a sufficient point. Like the stuff that they were saying, it was like, but you said this is going to be fair. And it was like, oh, well, like it was, the trial was a little weak. Like it was not an episode of Law and Order by any stretch, but it was just kind of like, you get the point, but it was written by someone who clearly did not understand how the law works, because like that trial they would have kicked that shit right out. And like, that's not an argument. It was like a sovereign citizen trial. It's like, you can't do that. Like, it was just weird. But yeah, I think that the Q stuff is interesting. It's just weird in this episode because it shouldn't have been first, but it should have been in the middle. It should have been like the point of like the climax of the episode should have been the Q trial. And then them figuring stuff out to the resolution. I think as we were talking about it, it feels misplaced happening right in the beginning, because I feel like we should know people before, and then anyway. But no, it works out great. I just, whoever did John Delancey's makeup did him dirty. Those purple mauve lips and that grease paint.
Dirty.
It gets worse in Deep Space Nine, but
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's bad. It's bad. Whoever did that to him did him dirty. But like in HD, it does not look good. But other than that, no, it works, but it needed to be its own thing, or it needed to be further into the episode. Like having that thing be the first thing we run into is a little weird. But then they can ignore it for 45 minutes, and you're like, okay. So,
anyone from the prosecution want to talk about Humanity's trial?
Overruled.
I will say later on, like, and it's less so this episode. I mean, I definitely lays the groundwork, obviously. I wish they would have almost continued it more through TNG, where he would pop up and, like, if they were starting to sway from some, like even here's another thing that would be jumping way forward, but like when we get the Borg, best of both worlds, when he has to like think about what he's doing, or I guess it's not best of both worlds, with Hugh, like if it was one of those things where Picard was going to send him back, but then Q came and put him on trial and was like, are you really going to be the best of humanity? Like, is humanity better? Are you going to go commit genocide to this entire race just because it's going to be easier for you? So it's like, I feel like it was a really fun concept that I'm really glad that they put up there. I fully agree that there are some really blatant tropes in those, the whole scene, that are of the 80s, you know, wasn't a great time to be anyone but, you know, straight and white. But it felt like the entire time, obviously we get it in all good things, but it feels like the whole trial throughout TNG was kind of like left after day one. And that's what I have to say.
Anyone else want to talk about the trial? Ken, hostile witness.
Yeah, I was always annoyed by whatever crane device that was trying to bring Q in, and how it just didn't work. It shook. It was like that. Whatever effects they're trying to do here, I mean, what the hell? I mean, that was just really crazy. But yes, I think it got paid off through the series. I like the bell, the dung dung. I thought that was kind of cool. I liked, you know, that's how it was, the dung. And then,
yes, I like the bell. The robes were really cute.
The robes are not. The robes are not. Like, in fact, I haven't got the Exo 6 Q the Judge figure because I think that just doesn't look good. But yeah, I think it was interesting, just to see how the very rarely used ever again ability for Data to mimic voices, and how they made that a big deal right there. And does he ever use that again? Ever? I don't even know.
He
does.
He
176546785.
Right.
No, do the whole thing, Benji.
4415556 black gamma 644.
Yeah. Brothers, he does it in what was that episode where the crystalline entity kills Riker's hookup?
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose.
He does that crazy doctor's son's voice.
Crystalline entity cock blocks him.
Yeah.
But then also the ADR of that is off.
Yes.
Like, what the? I mean, come on, people. Anyway.
Yeah, the ADR was rough in this entire episode. I know others have mentioned it too. Like, yeah, people in the, I know it's already said, but I'll just put it up again. Like, whenever the camera was here and Troy or Picard would say something from their chairs, it would just be like, "Yes, Captain."
It sounded like this.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on the trial, Joanne?
We can't hear
Joanne
you,
said,
Joanne.
"Nope, thank you.
I'm
Continue."
holding space for for Joanne to speak on the criminal justice system of our near future.
So I wasn't going to say anything. So I was debating how I want to lean into this. But I'll say this, that that whole kind of scenario for us watching it, right, at the time, located this series purely in fantasy, right? Because for us at the time, in the situation, I mean, even to this day, you know, having a human race free of prejudice and poverty and war, like we were like, oh, this is fantasy. um, so we can just suspend our disbelief or suspend our belief and watch this as the fantasy that it is, because the reality is, if you want to talk about a trial, then yeah, we need to talk about reparations and equal rights and access to health care. So our my social location at the time didn't weigh on any of that, because it's like, this is not my lived experience, this is not our reality. If y'all were ever put on trial, there would be hell to pay. So let's just enjoy this for what it is, right? So it's all about perspective. Everything is relative, right? Everything, context matters when you're watching these things. So there's that.
And I would hate to be across a courtroom from you, Joanne. I would get the maximum sentence, I'm sure. Queen. All right, y'all. Let's move further to let's move further than humanity should go. Farpoint Station. We've got a raggedy old village over there, and this beautiful starbase where you can get anything you ever need. Who has thoughts? Matt has some thoughts.
I want to
Even
say
the
that
name
this
sounds
is-
mysterious, Matt. Let it out.
Even the name sounds mysterious. I would like to just point out that it's canon that Starfleet's really insensitive when they name places, because just like
Yes.
Deep Space Nine, Farpoint Station, like, oh, even the name sounds mysterious. Like,
And it
people
actually
live
doesn't.
there. That's their house. Like, ooh, I'm going to mysterious Columbus, Ohio. It's like, no, it just seems, I mean, Farpoint Station itself, I like the idea that Starfleet didn't see any issue that, like, these people who were living in shacks, like huts and like lean-tos that were clearly decimated by some type of destruction, managed to make this pristine thing out of nothing. And they didn't question it. They were like, that's pretty cool. Let's go send our flagship and like establish something with them. It just, the whole figure out the mystery of Farpoint Station. Like, the whole thing, it's, and then you get the whole, oh, they can do really good power. Can they? Like, with what? Like, even like that's how they lured this creature here, or they helped the creature once it was there. With what?
Yes, that's a
You
great
With
have
their
shacks.
robust
Like,
geothermal power in the planet.
tell me how they harnessed it.
It's
That
like
just means
a
you
poor
have a
country
hot
that discovered a
planet.
bunch of oil.
They're
Like-
robust climate change.
Yeah,
This planet is a
to,
hot
like, not to quote my favorite movie too much, but in Insurrection, like, were these just a bunch of people that had discovered petroleum that were like, we just assumed that they weren't going to be an issue? Like, I don't know. The whole thing, the closer you look at this episode, the more it just starts kind of crumbling in your
But-
hands.
But the apples are delicious.
But the apple, yeah, and Riker, a completely open table.
Yes.
Oh, I guess I missed those.
Oh yes, there was another selection here.
Yeah.
Oh,
That ugly fucking fabric that Bev got too. That
Yeah.
ugly fucking fabric.
Here's
Oh,
the
okay,
thing
wait,
with
wait,
the
wait,
here's
for
the
that.
thing with the fabric though. It's the Chekhov's gun for Wesley, because Bolt Fabric Guy was eyeballing him like he was counting the days before he could turn him out and traffic him to
oh,
the nearest.
See, I
fucking
was just gonna
traveler.
say that it was one of Beverly's. Like, it just showed that Beverly bought all of his sweaters because she
Yeah.
has terrible taste in fabric.
you
Yeah,
took that in a
that's it.
completely different direction than I thought. Like the second you started talking, I was like, she's going over here, and at warp 9, you went
No,
the completely
no.
different
He
direction.
was
But she's
eyeballing
not
him
wrong.
like,
No, she's not.
Also, I would.
I'm going to turn him out. I'm going to bend him over. He's going to make me a lot of money. And then I'm going to give him to the travelers and tell him that's what he wants.
Oh God.
Bend
I
over,
also just
Wesley.
want to say that I can't.
What is
Yeah.
wrong? Why is that offensive? You all have a real idea about what's offensive.
No one, no one said offensive. I just think you just went in a different direction than I was anticipating.
How could you not know I was going in that direction? He was eyeballing the kid. There was no, they were eyeballing each other. It was virgin.
Because I'm not a white woman. I don't see predators everywhere.
Although, in fairness,
You don't
in
have a
fairness,
reason to
Wesley
see predators
did
everywhere.
always.
We are women here, Joanne and I. We see predators everywhere. Anyway, that's not. We're gonna shut that down right now. Moving on.
I will say it does
Is
come
that all we
across.
had to do this whole time? Is just do that?
Wow, that's
That's
amazing.
it. You
Wow,
just put your hand over the camera.
Now, does anybody, before we get too far off track, does anybody want to take the flip side of the argument and defend Groppler Zorn and what he did to that creature?
No.
Is there a Dick Cheney on the panel?
No. I will say it's weird. It's weird that they had this village where everyone was wearing rags and they had this like beautiful, pristine village, but no one decided to like dress better. It was like someone who won
Full
the
of
lotto.
fabric.
Yeah, clearly full
Yeah.
of fabric. It's like someone who won the lotto and like decided to buy a Range Rover, but they live in a hut. It's like, girl, get a better house. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like they're like, we have this beautiful station. I personally dress in rags and smell disgusting, but I have this beautiful station we're not touching. It's like, what the fuck's wrong with you?
Yeah,
It's
Groppler wasn't even living there.
No, that frizzy ass
Nope.
hair, that fucking
Well, I
chop
guess-
wig he was wearing, like the fuck, like it's like
Maybe because
this
the
dude's
jelly was
walking
gonna
around-
torture them all. But like, was Starfleet gonna like move into the base and then like lord it over like all the shantytown people? Like, how was that supposed to work?
It was very weird. It was very medieval village. It felt very like, oh, here are the serfs. We have this beautiful castle. Come to Versailles. Enjoy the pestilence next door. It was very weird. It's like, why are you all still living covered in shit in fucking mud huts? And you have this alien plant, this alien thing that will give you ugly fucking fabric. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? It was so weird. It's so that disconnect is so weird.
Also,
like to guess,
back to the fabric for a second.
Pestilence.
You know,
We're-
like Bev is getting onto a new starship where she has planned her entire season of plays. So she is like shopping in advance. She's getting cheap ass fabric from all these poor like textile manufacturers on this planet.
That's why she needed the
She's
whole
got this-
bolt.
Yeah.
And they have no money.
This will be
like
great for
Sergeant
Cyrano
Deborah.
de Bergerac. Yeah.
And we never
I'm
see
so-
that fucking fabric.
But I would
I'm
also,
Good.
Wait, I want to also point out the fact that the way that whole like scene is like put on together is it. She's coming up to it like, yeah, oh, I guess if it was in gold, I would like it. But like the way she says it's like, this is really nice. Oh, too bad it's not in gold. Like she was trying to be nice, and then she's like, oh, it is in gold. I'll just take the whole bolt. Thanks. Like
Also,
it
does
comes
she
across
know-
very like petty.
Does she know how to buy things? She's just like, send it up to my ship
Yeah,
whenever
send it
gets
to my ship. Charge it.
My name's
Charge it
Jeff.
to Dr.
Goodbye.
Crusher.
Who when they go shopping buys bolts of fabric in the first place? That doesn't happen. The whole
People-
point of shopping
Theater
is
departments,
some underpaid
artists.
in a third world country has spent years making that pair of jeans for you so that you don't have to make them. That is the American way.
I
the
do
way-
wish we saw her in like a shawl, like 3 episodes later, just wearing like a shawl with that fabric or something. It would have been
like a big brooch.
hilarious.
They introduced her and she was such a hottie bitch. I was like, Beverly, roll it
Yeah,
back.
her introduction is
Fucking
terrible.
Bitch. I don't want to talk to you, Riker.
Her son's introduction was terrible. Like they did Wesley dirty. Like he was annoying from the jump.
Yes.
I have two things to say about Farpoint. One, why is a warp-capable species who has perfected clean fusion remotely interested in geothermal energy? And two, leave it to this gaggle of homos and you two lovely ladies to spend more time talking about fabric than the actual fucking episode. I love you all.
Nice
The fuck?
drapes, though. It would have been a nice in a drape.
Those windows on that ship do need curtains.
Yes.
Where do you hang?
The next episode, in her quarters, we see those are curtains. That would be hilarious. Hilarious. And Will makes a great point. The ship has a replicator. Why do you need this ugly ass fabric? Like make it yourself.
It would have been great if she had like scanned it with her tricorder. So she's like, "Oh no, I'm just going to replicate this later."
Yeah. Oh, you know,
would that be the first
white-
use of AI?
white women of the future. I'm just gonna do this myself. Thank you. Tricorder. Do. Bye.
That's
Anyway.
yeah.
So the key is to build a huge station, but then have all of your townspeople and yourself dress like turn of the century street urchins.
Also,
So I
what
know
it is.
Farpoint was like it was like in that one we watched last week. I thought it was like a gas station or whatever because it was
Yeah.
Farpoint. So it was so far that it was going to be like if we're in the neighborhood, we can stop in and
Where
Like
the
you know,
hot dog?
Giga?
It's an
gird
intergalactic
our
Buc-ee's.
loins or rest our feet or whatever.
Yeah, it's an intergalactic rest stop.
Yeah,
so
it's a rest
they
stop.
just pull over and then there's like a truck stop, some truck stop hookers
You
Like, I
know,
touched
from like
you.
Orion just
And
walking
then-
around.
Oh my god, it's an outlet mall.
It's
Yeah,
I
Cabazon.
think
It's fucking Cabazon.
that's right. I think they probably tortured
Cracker Barrel with
the
a bunch of
jellyfish
rocking chairs for sale and food with
Giant windmill farm in the background.
to make it whatever, you know,
Except
to make it whatever people needed. So like if the Ferengi came by, it would have been, I don't know, whatever the fuck Ferengi need, a bug
eat people.
store.
naked women.
Also,
Naked
if they were
women.
gonna name it Farpoint, the Bandy should have just been canonically like constantly self-deprecating. Like, where do you guys live? We're really far from everything. What do you guys invent? Nothing. We're really lame. Look at our clothes. Like everything just should have been like they should have been the most downer people on the planet.
And they should have just kept saying, "What's the point? What's
They
the
kind of are. They look.
Well,
pretty
they kind of
fucked up.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
there you
like
go.
that
Maybe
dude who's, like,
maybe the
happiness
Enterprise arrived during a Renaissance
personified.
festival or something.
They're all wearing
Yeah.
like mop
Or-
heads or something.
All right, y'all.
Group costume idea for SDLV though.
No.
Bandy.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Wouldn't
The
be
second
hard.
part of this, the third part of this episode is then 3 drag queens show up in a car, and then they throw a strawberry festival called "It's Red and Wild." That's your theme. It'll be that. It's very like the town in Tu Wong Fu.
It
Yes.
really, actually, the more
Yes.
you say that, it really is.
It works.
What,
show
what do
up
you
in
call
reverse
this
class.
place? We call it Spidersville.
Yeah.
Oh man, Star Trek 2 Wong Fu would be great.
Star Trek 2, Wong Fu.
There we go. Yeah. Oh. You got
The
one,
Wong-
Ken.
The Wong Fu
Yeah.
one.
I'm gonna let you have that one. A
Here's
space
a
monkeys.
reminder, y'all need to vote on the bonus material for this month or next month. I don't really know which month it is, but the bonus material is the porn. Vote for the porn because you want to watch us watch the porn with the porn.
For the record, we will. That is a great segue into ending this episode. We will shortly turn it over to Trevor for the tallies. But yes, please do like and subscribe for this nonsense. And we are on Patreon. There's a free tier, a $2 and a $5 tier if you want to help us defray the cost of hosting this complete nonsense. It is appreciated. And anybody can vote on our bonus content polls. It is up for another day and a half. We've got 4 options, including, yes, the TNG triple X parody with the porn scenes cut. We'll just be watching the episode. It's a surprisingly good story. You want to get our commentary for sure. And now that I've pressured the voters, you can also, there's still time for any of the 4 options, even Ken's, to get even 1 vote or win. It's possible. It is possible.
I'm gonna vote for Ken's.
Yes. Please do like and subscribe and find us in all of the places. Trevor, my dear, please give us the tallies.
Get us out of here somehow. There were 4 problematic gay alerts. There were 2 Bev alerts. There was 1 explosive saucer separation. There was 1 tosser alert. There was 1 that doesn't have a banner yet, but I'm calling it the petty bitch alert. And technically speaking, there was a Ken while actually in the pre-show. In terms of bonus points, I gave 10 million bonus points to Krista for time warp. Oh, wait, sorry. 100 bonus points to Ken for consuming a respectable amount of whatever he consumed. Okay, back to Krista. Nope, Ken's interrupting again. 50 bonus points to Ken for finally hit microphone. Back to Krista. 10 million bonus points to Krista for putting up with interruptions. 1,600 bonus points to Joanne for ordering us all to suck on her fandom. 7 million bonus points to Matt for somehow workshopping this episode better than the writers did. 1,200 bonus points to Benji for appropriately grimacing at goiters. And 1,701 bonus points to Will for 2 Wong Fu references.
I do what I can.
We did it, y'all. I am full of great joy and gratitude for everyone watching this nonsense. 17 of you stuck with it live, so thank you very much. Thank you to our friends in the chat, my fellow saloners. We've got a full house tonight on the panel. It was lovely to have you all. And we will be back next week talking about our first good Star Trek pilot, Emissary, for Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So get excited for that. We will see you all next Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific. And until then, please live long and prosper.
All hands abandon ship. Proceed to the nearest evacuation zone immediately.